My name is Laurie Aaronson, one of the founders of AOC for, I think next year will be 20 years. My background is actually in public accounting as well as consumer finance, I guess. I was with Intuit just out of school, and just really love working with restaurants as a CPA in Boston. I worked with chains, national chains, and just really loved the industry. But where I thrived and where I really felt most valued was working with independent restaurants. Love the cast of characters, love the problems that we encounter. So that's what I've been doing for more than 20 years now at AOC, and before that, companies. And I think our very first employee was Seth.
I've been working with AOC for about 16 years now and come from a background of operations. So I worked in restaurants for, I want to say, close to a decade. While going to school, I wrapped up an accounting degree and then switched to the other side. And I just could not walk away from restaurants. So I think to me, it's the love of hospitality and the buzz, the energy, it's fun, the good food, all the beautiful spaces. It's just really intriguing and enticing. So it's nice to be around them and just see how they evolve. It's been a fun journey. We offer full cycle accounting. We can process payroll and your accounts payable, just the kind of the general bookkeeping as well as the month end close. We can help dive in on some projects. We can look at existing financials and do some project work to help find opportunities. The one thing we don't do is tax. It's just Laurie kind of hinted at it. We know what we don't know, and we try and put you in contact with the right person to help you on that front. We make sure that the information being provided to those CPAs is as tight and as buttoned up as possible. And part of that starts, on that weekly level. We try and keep things tight on a weekly basis. So the monthly numbers are good. The quarterly numbers are also good. You can report those to investors, and then at year end, it should be a pretty painless process. So.
Yeah, and we are doing the other taxes. Yeah. What Seth's referring to is the year end federal and state tax return.
Yeah.
And in terms of personal property taxes, gross receipts tax, if you're in San Francisco, or other local taxes, sales tax, payments and returns, all those sorts of things we handle. So it's really just the specialized end of year returns that we don't. Seth kind of mentioned some consulting services. We do a lot of financial projections that work their way into business plans, LOI and lease reviews from a not replacing the attorney, but from the business perspective, kind of anything that touches the financial world.
For someone who's looking to open their own business, I think that initial investment very early upfront, does this space work with the concept that I'm thinking of, and working through that is invaluable. I can't stress enough the value of having a really strong model or a pro forma. It's not just a plan, it's kind of a checks and balances. Is this project, you've got this big, beautiful idea, does it pencil? Is this ever going to make money? And I think really spending time early on, before you even get the ball rolling, putting in that investment, finding the financial firm, finding whoever's going to help you build that model, and truly trying to work through all of the inputs and kind of stress testing that model. You think your sales are going to be X. What happens if it's 20% less than X? Can you still make money?
In terms of timing, sometimes we'll do that before someone has a space, because we're trying to get a base case in place, which can be really helpful as you evaluate a potential space. Can I afford this space? Anyone who builds a model for you, that model should be flexible. That model, you should be able to very easily say, well, you know what, in this location, we wouldn't have lunch, but we'd be open for 6 days, dinner instead of 5. There's key money, but I think the construction costs are going to be less. In a very short period of time, you should be able to modify your base case and evaluate whether a particular location works. And so we believe in building models that don't just go to your investors and sit on a shelf. We believe in building models that help you through the process, are very iterative as you learn more once you select a space, and ultimately will become your first year operating budget. But you want a living, breathing document that helps you make decisions as you go. I think that we're very good at knowing what we're experts in and where our expertise stops. For example, I review a lot of leases with people. I'm not an attorney. They have to get a separate lawyer, but I'll go through the deal points with them. but I'm not going to go through the exhibit that's landlord work and talk about whether the amperage that they're going to provide is adequate for their needs, because we're not experts in that area. But I think we're really good at making sure that everything that needs to be considered comes out on the table. And then we're really good at connecting people with other people that they need out other than us, which of course they're going to need people other than us. So I think a lot about starting a restaurant is about knowing what questions to ask and then having the ability to get connected with people that are respected in the industry, charge reasonably, are reliable, are going to do what they say they're going to do. I think it's an iterative process. So I don't think somebody needs to have their equipment list to come to us to start building a model. We have a question and answer form that if somebody comes and says, I want to do a restaurant, my husband calls me the killer of dreams. I'm like, do you really want to do this? Here are all the reasons why you don't want to do this. And sometimes someone's like, yeah, I really don't want to do this. But sometimes people persevere on, and then we'll send them a checklist. And you can sit with that checklist for a long time, quite frankly. When they send it back, we'll have a conversation about, all right, is this enough to get started? And we're going to fill in the blanks with benchmarks and learn more as we go. And one of the as we goes, but usually not until you have a location, is, all right, you got to get some estimates from contractors and you have to come up with an equipment list, because those are obviously the two biggest numbers on a capital budget.
Those are the very real early conversations that happen. We try and suss out, is this truly what you want to do and why are you in it? We look at the modeling process, like it's important that you come at least with the concept and some basics, as Laurie mentioned, but at the end of the day, this is also relationship building, and we're trying to connect you with whatever resources. If there's a gap and we know somebody who can better backfill or explain or provide that input that you need, we're going to connect you. We look at this time, it's not just producing this deliverable. We're trying to foster a relationship.
And not everybody decides to move forward.
Yeah.
But I've talked to clients, they're like, look, this was a big value. I was educated. I was educated on what this is really going to look like. And I didn't move forward with a big investment in time and money. And I feel okay about that because I explored it. But I think it's very much education process for everyone.
It's going to differ from restaurant to restaurant. You need to make sure that on your capital budget, that labor model on your capital budget, that you factor in all the costs. So you're not just buying equipment, you're buying equipment plus sales tax plus freight and install. So when you're getting those bids, that you're factoring in all these additional components. It's not just a $10,000 stove, it's 15 all in. Just really making sure that you're, one, factoring that into your budget, two, that you're tracking your actual spend versus that budget. And as you're going through that process, if you're over in one place, can you find savings elsewhere? At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have a comprehensive capital budget, but also include cash on hand for things like your opening inventory. And then making sure that you have a good cushion of operating capital, making sure you can sustain losses for 6 to 12 months. Those losses, depending on the size of the project, big project could be big losses, small project, smaller losses. So it boils back to that model of, we might not even project you being profitable in year one or towards the tail end of year one. So making sure you've got the cash to sustain those losses.
And I think it's really an important distinction in your capital budget, the difference between operating capital and contingencies. They're not the same. So you always want to have at least a 10% contingency on your GC budget. And that's like if you have a pretty straightforward project. If it's a real old building and we don't actually know what we're getting into until we get in there, versus a brand new building south of Market that was a restaurant that was open for 6 months and closed, I want different contingencies on those too. I've seen so many people hire too early and start paying rent too early. You might be hiring your chef and your GM, they might be coming on payroll 2 months before you open. You really want to build contingency everywhere. We usually budget for 1.5 weeks of hourly payroll for training, hoping that it's a week, providing a little cushion. So you just really want detail and then cushion, and hire good accountants. Want to explain why, Seth? It doesn't have to be us, but hire someone good.
So you get this project going, you need that feedback. You need to know week 1, week 2, how are you doing? What's your sales look like? Obviously you get a POS sales report, but that's not the full picture. That doesn't show you your all-in payroll, your hourly plus your management as a percentage of sales. And getting that feedback early and consistent and accurately is really key, especially in the opening months. You're trying to establish a baseline. You're going to see pretty big fluctuations up, down, and sales trends and labor trends. You want to know what your kitchen purchases look like relative to food sales, get that cost of goods going. Because if you budgeted 30 and you're operating at 40 for a month, it's kind of too late. It's going to be harder to correct that. Having good information, access to good information is key. Also, making sure you understand the reporting that you're getting. It's really key to just have that feedback early and timely, and make sure you're using it. I think the other thing to keep in mind is just to be flexible over the first few months. You may have modeled one thing and you've got this grand vision of something, but if something's off, if you budgeted $100 check average and it's coming in at 60, you got to kind of figure out how are you going to get there, or do we need to change that target? Being able to adapt, I think, is really key.
And not being afraid of your numbers, even if they're scary and they're bad. You need to embrace that information and really form a partnership with your financial partners, with your accountants. The information that they can give you will only be as good as what you do together. So you've got to work together on the deliverables and developing systems and processes internally to make sure that on the financial front, you're a well-oiled machine. I believe that well-oiled financial machines operate better. So there's like intangible benefits beyond the financial ones that I think come from having this good relationship. And a really good accounting firm, they should educate you. Part of our job, right, is to make sure that everybody understands the information so that they can use it. We always say that the monthly financials should not be a surprise. So if you're looking at your information weekly, the weekly is like the conversation during the month. The accounting is done on a weekly basis. Each week stands alone. It helps us turn around financials quickly at the end of the period. And it's, more consistent with how you're running the restaurant on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. You're not thinking about fiscal periods when you're running the restaurant. So by the time the financials come out at the end of the month, it should be like, yep, that's kind of what I thought. And if the P&L is a surprise, we need to take a step back and figure out how we can change that. Fundraising is really hard, but find the right investors. We all know that it's not a way to get rich. This is not a get rich quick. And so you want investors who are going to be supportive, believe in your vision and aren't looking for freebies. I really always dissuade people from adding on a ton of benefits that are going to be administratively onerous for them. If I decide to invest in your business, it should be because I want to support it. I'm going to show up, I'm going to bring friends, I'm going to have events there, but not because you're giving me a discount necessarily. So really find investors that are going to support you, that believe in your vision, believe in you. And that's really what you want, is people who bought into your vision and you.
I think we already kind of touched on it, but I do think making sure your whole team has transparency and kind of financial literacy, so there's some buy-in and they understand what's going on. It's important. It's also, it allows you, if that structure's in place and there are systems in place, you can add accountability as the owner operator, and that you're having those ongoing dialogues, that you're engaging them and keeping them looped in.
Invest in a good lawyer
Yes.
for your lease, because one deal point gone wrong can cost you way more than the upfront legal costs. That's why an LOI can be so helpful, a letter of intent, before you get to the lease. A letter of intent is not legally binding, but it's where you can, even without a lawyer, spell out all the potential deal breakers in terms of the business points. Do not rely on the broker if the broker is representing the landlord. So you really need someone on your side to make sure that the deal points are the ones that you're comfortable with. And then when you get to the lease, that's where I think it's really important to make sure that a lawyer is reading the condemnation, more the fine print than a broker or someone like me will get into. Someone that can make sure that the lease is fair and balanced and doesn't have any potential bombs in it for you. Find a lawyer you trust. I work with lots of good lawyers. You need a recommendation.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate both of your time. We are happy to see that you both are going to be part of our Playbook series. So thank you.
Well, thank you for doing it. I think it's going to be incredibly valuable for people.
Thank you.
Very cool project. Thanks, Misty.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.